studying in? Amos. There's only a few pages in Amos. There's not really that many. There's only 9 chapters in Amos. That's it. And I was thinking this morning, for all of this, you see at the beginning of the book, if you look like, at least in my Bible, it says the date is 755 BC, and that's a year, I guess. But Amos didn't just talk to people one time. I mean, the way we read through it, it's like, well, yeah, Amos had a conversation, and he talked to a couple of people, and 9 chapters, it's over. And no, this is, I don't know, do you think it might be 15, 25 years, something like that he's given God's message? Yeah, it was a long time. So it wasn't just that he gave all this information one time. He gave it over and over and over again, and it was God's message to everybody, not just God's people, but to the Philistines and many others as well. And it was about coming judgment. And I can imagine Amos probably wasn't welcome too much for the people that he went and talked to. For Israel, it was a time of, I don't know, just economically, they were doing really well. They just weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They weren't taking care of people. They weren't doing things the way they should do it. And the message from Amos wasn't the message they wanted to hear, which was God's message that you're doing it all wrong. And we saw last week that Amos wasn't from the tribe of Levi. He wasn't of the lineage of the prophets or priests. He was just a common man that was called by God. He was a herdsman from Tekoa, which was, I don't know, middle of nowhere, I guess you'd say. Smaller than Rolla, sounds like. You compare it to something. And all of this happened prior to a really well-known earthquake that happened in the time frame, and that was what we studied about at the very beginning. And that was, sometimes when you have earthquakes, you think about that as a period of time that it impacted so many people, and it was no different here. This is really emphasizing the power of God and imminent judgment and his wrath upon those who had been disobedient, which was most everyone. And talked about the top of Mount Carmel shall wither. It was known for abundance, and you could even say a crowning jewel of plenty, and it was going to get wiped away. It also talked about the messages for each of the people, is for those in Damascus, for those in Syria, and he gave some specific examples of things that they had done. Like in Tyrus, they sold people into slavery. And for the Edomites, they pursued their brother with a sword. For the Ammonites, they ripped up the women that were with child, so they not only killed the men, but they killed the women and their children, unborn children. They didn't have any mercy at all. The Moabites, they were pretty much in continual warfare. And then we kind of stopped short last week. We didn't get to it, so we'll try to do it quickly today. There was God's judgment on Judah and Israel. And this is Amos chapter 2. And this is a shift in the prophecy. Judah was accountable to the law of God and was obliged to honor it and uphold it, but they rejected God. And the message was that judgment would come. There'd be fire coming upon Judah that would devour the palaces or the fortresses of Jerusalem. It said that Israel sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. So they're really no better than any of the other wicked people that were out there. There's no difference. You couldn't tell any difference at all. And there's no boundaries for their transgressions. Um, it's interesting that you look at a marriage of a man and a woman as a picture, well, it's how God wants it to be, and it's also a picture of the union between Christ and his church. But look how many times man wants to make it something else, do something else. And not just do something else, but say it's right. And redefine what right and wrong means. Because, of course, I can't do anything wrong, so anything I want to do, I'm going to define that as being right, which is totally against God and God's teaching. God reminded them that he was the one that brought them out of Egypt, out of the bondage, and led them through the wilderness, and took care of them once they came out of the wilderness. They were not following it properly with the Nazarites as far as all the commandments had been given with respect to them. And it said God would press down on them just like a cart that you see is overloaded. Sometimes you see that on the highway. You see somebody has a trailer or a truck, and they just got every single thing in there that they can put in there, and a lot of times it's broken down. A trailer have a wheel off of it or something like that. And the Lord is saying to them that I'm going to put so much on you that you're going to feel like you just can't even hardly move because of the judgment that's coming. As far as the extent of it, it's against the whole family which he brought from the land of Egypt. And only Israel could say they were the chosen nation to represent God. God gave his law to them, and he allowed them to inherit the promised land. But in exchange for that, there was also an expectation of accountability to God as well, that they would follow God's commandments, that they would worship the Lord only. And as a result of what they have been doing the wrong way, here it says, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities, and that's in Amos 3 and 2. And so there's a cause and effect that when we sin against the Lord, if you're claiming to be one of the Lord's people, you're just setting yourself up to be punished. I mean, that's just how it is. You don't get away with anything when you're a Christian. You don't get away with anything. Some of us think, oh, no, nobody will notice. Nobody will see anything. Yeah, Lord sees it. Lord sees everything. And we talked about the lion and the trumpet and all the warnings of what's coming. And that's what this is. The words of Amos are a warning of the judgment that's coming. Okay. We're almost caught up. Oh, we didn't do this last week. So it talked about a shepherd, and if they lost a sheep, especially if it was someone else's sheep that they were watching, they would rescue the parts that they could to show what happened to the sheep. So if they got a leg or whatever, carcass, they would bring it back to show that, yeah, they did find it, they did see it, they saw what happened to it. And the Lord is saying that this is like God's judgment coming is just going to be like that. The children of Israel are going to be ripped apart. It also talked about the altar of Bethel, which 11 miles north of Jerusalem. And God promised to cut the horns off the altar, showing there would be no security or escape for anyone. So we didn't talk about that too much last time. Does anybody want to talk about what that means about the altar and the horns on the altar? Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and when you do that, God holds you accountable. You set up anything between somebody and God. Hmm. 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 Yeah, and it was everybody. It was the whole nation had done that. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and it was an indication of what was coming. Yeah, and so it wasn't just damaging an altar; it was going to be the taking over of the whole nation, as you're saying. And so they were going to get a lot of chastisement. So that's more or less what we were supposed to cover last week. We just finished it. For this week, that starts in Amos 5 and goes through 9. And we're just going to go ahead and get into it. Chapter 5. Okay. Would somebody like to read the first 8 verses? Thank you, Sister Debbie. So, this whole thing here is telling us about the upcoming ruin of Israel, and it's using a lot of different language to explain what's going to happen. And if you look here first in the very first verse, what is a lamentation? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the exact opposite thing of what had been happening in the country. The country was they were overflowing with I guess other verses would say milk and honey, not in this specific ones, but they were having everything they wanted. They thought, "What's the problem? What's going on? We're doing everything. You know what's the issue here?" And so lamentation is the coming grief. And verse 2: the virgin of Israel is fallen; she shall no more rise. She is forsaken upon her land; there is none to raise her up. So how many times after they had after they had gone into the promised land, how many times had Israel been conquered? They're going to be. That's what it's telling them, right? It's coming. And so this prophecy from somebody that's not even a priest was very, very difficult for them to listen to, because nothing's going to happen to us. We're God's chosen people. We're in the land that God gave us. We don't need to worry about it. We're doing good. We're feeling good. We've got everything we want. We don't have any problems or issues. Yet they really did know that they weren't following the Lord. They knew what the law said, and they know what they were doing compared to what the law said. And this judgment, if you look at verse 3, the city that went out by 1,000 will leave 100. What does that mean? 90% of the people. Yeah. Yeah. hmm But the Hebrews weren't displaced in that. hmm Yeah. Yeah. So he took a lot of people out. Yep. So, and this is what they're foretelling here is going to be worse than that. This is going to be them being completely conquered and taken. And you say 90% of the people are going to be impacted. 90% are going to die. 10% are going to be a remnant. So just think about that. 1 out of 10 are going to survive. 1 out of 10 are going to live. That's very, very devastating, obviously. So, yeah, yeah, that's huge. I mean, you could even have a nuclear war, and you'd probably have more than 1 in 10 that would be left. And so, uh, yeah, this is going to be completely devastating for them. And we could pick it up again down in, let's see, verse 11 through 17, if somebody would like to read that. Thank you, Sister Joanne. So we don't think too much about the gate of the city from where we live. We got the arch, which is the gateway to the west. But if we want to find out what's going on, we don't go down to the arch and talk to people. Uh, that's kind of a thing that doesn't match necessarily for us. But where I was born in Tennessee, Paris is the county seat, and they have a little court square, and they have a lot of people talking about different things, looking at different things. They have the courts there. Um, it's the place where if you wanted to know what was going on, that's where you went. And they had a newspaper, but the newspaper only had some of the information in it. And if you went to the court square, which my grandparents pretty much did all the time, that's where you figured out what was going on, and what was coming up, and so on. And so, what they're talking about here is the gate was where people found out what was going on. It was also where people were to go to have something to be judged. And the poor were being ignored. And so they had legitimate claims, they had legitimate grievances and things that were done against God's law, and they were taking it just like they were supposed to, and there was no justice provided. They were just said, yeah, too bad. Somebody stole something from you, too bad. It's gone. Live with it or whatever. And so you think of it generally, but this was all very, very specific to each person, that justice wasn't being done. And the justice goes back to the law being presented back in Moses' day, and they weren't following it. They were ignoring it. They were just doing whatever they wanted to do. As far as the religious ceremonies, they were worshiping idols. They were doing those things. But they still did the Feast of the Tabernacle, all those things. Because of tradition, they just kept doing all that. So they're doing both. And the Lord wasn't happy with any of it. And the messages throughout all of this is seek good and not evil. And this is a message from God, delivered by Amos. And he's trying to get their attention to say, you need to change. You need to turn around. This is wicked. And it's just, this message is a hard message. And I can't imagine anyone in Amos' time being very interested in hearing it. And just like today, if you were just, I don't know, go to a shopping mall or go to anywhere and just start reading from the Bible, do you think people would just they just ignore you, or you think something would happen if you started doing that? I think they wouldn't like it too much because it reminds them that they're not doing it God's way. It puts people under conviction. You don't have to be saved to be under conviction from the Word. When people hear the Word, they're under conviction. It's like the Bible says this, and they can say, well, I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in the Bible, or whatever it is. It doesn't change anything. Doesn't mean the Bible's not true. Doesn't mean God's not there and the creator of all things. It just means they're denying it. Yep. And I know when I was growing up, they said, you people are just so intolerant. Yeah. Yeah, they don't have to worry about deciding anything. Uh, yeah, Sister Debbie, what you said is right on. As there was Pride Week or Pride Games, whatever you want to say it is, and people were told to wear uniforms that had all that on there, and some of the baseball players just put a Bible verse, something from Genesis. Uh, yeah, what the rainbow really meant, right? And yeah, people were outraged. People that talk about tolerance all the time, now they're not so tolerant of somebody that believes something different. So
but they weren't worshiping the true God. They were worshiping false gods through those traditions, those ceremonies, and things. This, to me, is a wake-up call for us. Because Israel had been chosen, the whole nation had been chosen to spread the word to all of the regions around about. Today, we, the Lord's church, has been chosen to spread God's word and the gospel message to those around. But if we're coming into this building and our focus is not on worship of God and praise of God, then we're not doing much different than what they were doing in Israel. We come together, so-called under the name of God, but if our worship and praise is not pure, if our focus is on other things, what am I going to have for lunch? What am I doing this afternoon? What's going on this week? And we're robbing God of what he deserves. We need to take this within our own heart. It's not just about those outside, but it really is more to us because we're God's voice if we're truly saved. If we're a member of his New Testament church, and it's upon us to have a dedicated life that's focused toward God. And when we do that, just like if Israel had done that, then others would see and believe. Not all, but that's where our testimony is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on, Brother Mike. This is relevant to us for sure. And mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes we think, well, this could never happen to us. We could never get off track like this and not focus on the Lord and focus on the Lord's word when we come to church. But we've been visiting churches, going to Nashville. You see everything. You didn't mention it, Brother Mike, but a lot of it's turned into entertainment. Well, this is an entertainment venue. This is a show, and people are going to go there and expect, yeah, there's going to be songs, there's going to be all kinds of different things, and maybe it'll point to the Lord, maybe not. Maybe it points to the people that are the entertainers more than anything else. And so all these things are missing the mark. And here Israel is blatantly just doing whatever they want to do. That's what they're doing. They're just doing anything they want to do. And they're still going through the motions of doing what the Lord told them to do, which is just making the Lord even more mad about the whole thing. And so in this verse 8, Brother Mike, that you read, I think one of the reasons he talked about the 7 stars, Orion, all this, because they were part of the false worship was the horoscopes, all these other things, about all the signs, whatever people call it. But the stars were created by God. And so they're, exactly, yeah, they're worshiping creation, and they're making up things. That's the other thing. They're just making up a bunch of things just to suit themselves. And so it's really no different today. You see a lot of people making up things, doing whatever they want to do. Is there much justice today when you look around, things that are happening? It's somebody commits a crime, and then suddenly they're the one that everybody's rallying behind is the person that committed the crime, and the victim might even be dead. And they're saying, oh yeah, let this person, let him go, whatever. You know, they had a stressful moment or something, they didn't mean it, or whatever they want to say. Yeah, exactly. And so the wickedness that the Lord is talking about here, we see it. We see it everywhere. We see it all over our country. And what the Lord's telling people is, verse 14, seek good and not evil, that ye may live. And in this case, live means survive. It doesn't mean have a happy life and everything will be awesome. It, he's talking about survival here. When you're saying 90% of the people aren't going to make it, it's a cleansing of all these people and getting rid of the idolatry and all the other sins. Look at the judgment that came from the time of Noah, where everybody died except Noah and his family. And so it just shows that the natural way for things to go is that same way. In verse 18, we didn't read that yet. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light, as if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand upon the wall, and a serpent bit him. And so he's saying here, so the religious people were talking about, oh, well, we can't wait till the day of the Lord comes. Well, you're the one that's going to be affected by it. Judgment is on you. It's not on everybody else that you don't like. It's on you. And they're not going to have any relief when the Lord's judgment comes. He talks quite a bit more about it there. So if we could read, let's see, for chapter 6. We still got a lot to cover. There's a lot of material. Brother Mike, if you want to take over and finish. All right. Let's see if someone would like to read chapter 6, verses 1 through 6.
Then go down to Gath, Philistine, see they better than these kingdoms, or their border greater than your border. Ye that put far away an evil day, and cause thieves violence to come near, that lie on beds of ivory, and stretch themselves upon their couches, and eat lambs out of the flock, and the calves out of the midst of the stall, that chant to the sound of the viol, and invent themselves instruments of music like David, that drink wine in bowls, and anoint themselves with cheap ointments, but they are not grieved for the affliction of Joseph.
Thank you, Brother Mike. So what does that last part mean? They're not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. What do you think they might be talking about there? So Joseph's story was a story about his brothers turning him for slavery. And so Joseph didn't get any justice. The Lord blessed him, but early in his life, he was put into slavery. He was put into prison. He was mistreated. And so what they're saying here is, you got this rich life. You're enjoying all the finer things. You're doing every single thing, lying on beds of ivory. It can't be more luxurious than what you have. But you're not grieved of the affliction of Joseph. You're not paying attention to what's going on. What's happening in your country? People are taken into slavery. Why aren't you paying attention to that? You're held accountable for that. And they're not paying any attention at all. And then down here it says in verse 11, for behold, the Lord commandeth, and he will smite the great house with breaches, and the little house with clefts. Shall horses run upon the rock? Will one plow there with oxen? For ye have turned judgment into gall, and the fruit of the righteousness into hemlock. And it was, I guess the notes in the thing that says here from mine is that Israel's mixed up moral standards were as ridiculous as horses trying to run on rocks. They were so confused about what was right and what was wrong, what they believed in and what they practiced, that they're about as far off track from God's word as they could be. And things that we think are common sense, horses don't run on rocks. You can be a Mustang. You can drive fast on the rocks, but you're not going to turn. If you turn, you're probably going to end up having a wreck or flip, whatever. These are some basic things that they're just ignoring altogether. And in verse 13, which ye rejoice in a thing of naught, which say, have we not taken to us horns by our own strength? So they think all these things, all these benefits they're having, the economic situation for Israel, they did it by themselves. They're not giving God credit for it. And so the Lord is saying, okay, fine. Verse 14, I'll raise up a nation, against you a nation, O house of Israel, saith the Lord God of hosts, and they shall afflict you from the entering in of Hemath unto the river of the wilderness. And so, more or less, everybody's going to be affected by it. Nobody's going to be spared. Even when people survive, if you're the 1 out of 10 that survived, where's the happiness in that? If you're 1 out of 10 people in your family and you're the only one that survived, where's the joy in that? And so there's really there's nothing but grief coming, just as we saw at the very beginning about the lamentation. It will be grief for everyone. And then here we're going to look at some of the visions that Amos had. First, there was a vision of locust. And what do we know about locust? Yeah, it's not just a one or two or three locust. It's like hundreds, thousands, millions, right? Yeah, it's a whole swarm. And when we have, what is it? Is it cicadas? What is it that comes through? Yeah. I remember driving down Highway 55 thinking, what is that noise my car's making? And when I rolled the window down, it was the cicadas. And it was like, okay, it's almost incomprehensible for us to think about locusts coming and just devouring everything. But they eat up all the food. They don't leave anything behind. And so what do the animals eat? What do the people eat? There's nothing. They eat it all up. And talked here about the latter growth. It was a latter growth after the king's mowing. So I think the implication there is the king's mowings are the first fruits that come from a harvest is for taxes. So you do your harvesting, the initial things go to the government, and then after that, when the rest of the crops come in, then that's what's for you to live on, and that's when the locusts are going to come. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whose instruction is this? Given to Israel, not the other nations.
Mm-hmm.
Not was given to for us today. It's to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's our responsibility to reach out and help.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us have, and it's the government's job.
and you're accountable to not just activity and situations like that. You see the problem, you need to help with the problem. And yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And if you leave it to the government, I mean, it just makes me think of the programs like the Leering centers in Minnesota. $80 million spent, and there's nobody being taught. What about the California bullet train? Hundreds of millions of dollars spent, nothing to show for it. Yeah, it's all just being taken. Yeah, yeah, and it's being taken from people just to make other people rich. It's mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Right? What can I do? Yeah, yeah. And that's what the Lord is telling them over and over here. He had a vision of the locust devouring everything. Then he had a vision of fire. Uh, and fire is just all consuming. I think there was, I saw something on the news. There's some resort in the Caribbean was just gone. I guess they had palm leaves for their roof and some of the walls, whatever, and they had a picture of it. And the whole thing was just burning. It was not burned down yet, but it was burning down. And people went there for a vacation. They went thinking, hey, everything's going to be great. Then fire just took it all. There's nothing left. The next one was a vision of a plumb line, and we got this picture. You got the big book for the big words, not complicated words, but larger type words. you have the plumb bob on there, and so people that work on projects know what that is. Projects around the house. So what is a plumb bob? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hang a string on it, and you just hold it up. It's got a point on the end of it, and that's going to be a straight line. It's going to be a straight line compared to the earth. If you're going to build something, a building, then your line pretty much ought to match what that line is. If it doesn't, then it's going to look like the Leaning Tower of Pisa or something else, and it's not going to last. It's just going to fall over. And so the significance of that is when the Lord looks at us, he measures us. How are you doing? For how you're living your life, for how you're spending your time, for the way that you worship, the way that you serve the Lord, how are you doing? How are you doing it compared to the expectations of the Lord? The Lord's expectation is the standard. And when the plumb bob is out, it's like, okay, I'm going to measure this against, how are you doing? And the one thing about a plumb bob, you can pretty much tell in a second whether it's on or off. It's pretty easy. Same thing if you use like a level. Stick it up on a wall and see if you're going to hang something on the wall straight or not. The bubble just tells you, yeah, it's either it is or it isn't. And sometimes you can fix it, sometimes you can't fix it. But here's the Lord standing upon a wall, and he's got the plumb line in his hand, and he's asking Amos, what do you see? And more or less, there's a plumb line in the midst of the people of Israel, and they're not measuring up, is the message. And the high places of Isaac shall be desolate, and the sanctuaries of Israel shall be laid waste. And I'll rise against the house of Jeroboam with a sword. And so If you have a plumb bob, you figure out, hey, guess what? That wall's not straight. If you're building a house, that wall's coming down. You're going to do it again. You're going to fix it and make it straight. It doesn't do any good for you to keep going. You got to fix what's wrong before you can move forward. Okay, and then chapter 8 is the vision of a basket of summer fruit. That sounds really good, doesn't it? Think of summer fruit. Oh yeah, there's strawberries and tomatoes and cherries and apples and bananas. That sounds like a pretty good thing. But that's not the context of what he's saying here. In chapter 8, verse 2, and he said, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. Then said the Lord unto me, the end is come upon my people Israel. I will not again pass by them any more. And the songs of the temple shall be howlings in that day, saith the Lord God. There shall be many dead bodies in every place. They shall cast them forth with silence. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. And the rest of the words here, he says, the summer fruit is basically going to be taken away. So all the things you're proud of, they're all going to be taken away. It's going to be gone. Just like when you go to the market, you pick up a piece of fruit, take it, walk away. That's what's going to happen with everything that they treasure. It's going to be taken. And not just that, but their lives as well. And we didn't get quite finished. We didn't get to chapter 9. But it's not so good for all these listening to the message of Amos. And next week, we're not going to be talking about Amos anymore. We're done with Amos. We're going to be talking next time about Uzziah's sin and punishment. And that's in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles.